There are a lot of cars that should have never been made. They were unsafe, they were ugly, they never sold any of them. I'm sure car manufacturers have a lot of regrets, and today I want to talk about 5 cars that should have absolutely never been made. This sounds like the type of content that you want to see, or you want to watch the Driven Diary episodes that come out on this channel every Monday, where we cover the behind the scenes of building a billion-dollar automotive service business. Please click subscribe below. Let's get to it. Okay, 5 cars that should have never been made. And for this video, I'm actually going to think about the criteria of redundancy. And so these are cars that existed in a world of a specific manufacturer where that manufacturer made another car that did exactly the same frickin' job, and it pisses me off to no end. And so I think you will appreciate these 5 cars and how stupid it was that the manufacturers decided to make them. Number 1, the first generation Toyota Venza. I don't know why Toyota decided that they needed something that looked like a van but was an SUV and did neither job well. It was a 5-seater van-shaped SUV in a world where they have a 4Runner and a Highlander. If you have a 4Runner and a Highlander, you don't need a 5-seater little crossover sleek-looking SUV because the Highlander already accomplishes all of the same functional tasks and looks better because it's more purpose-built than the Venza. The Venza was for some reason this van that they decided to put onto an SUV unibody chassis that served no practical purpose whatsoever for Toyota. It was ugly. It was a cannibalization seller where it basically just allowed dealers to say, well, you're looking at a Highlander. Do you want a Venza instead? Because they had to sell it. It wasn't that it was more profitable. It wasn't that it was good for the brand. It was a complete waste of effort for Toyota to make the Venza. Car number 2, this one will definitely be the one that's most universally agreed upon on this list, and it is the Audi Q4. The current generation and the previous generation of the Audi Q4 is definitely the ugliest car that Audi has ever made, and I'm including a lot of the original TTs and the A2s and the A1s in that analysis, and I believe that the Q4 is I don't remember who said it. Some car journalist said that the Q4 looks like a dog taking a shit, and they are correct. It is ugly. It is something that didn't need to exist, because Audi has the Q3 and the Q5, and I don't think there is anybody who wanted a Sportback, not Model Y, not a Mercedes GLE Coupe. This is some weird little chunky-backed, hunchback, narrow-bodied thing that just didn't need to exist. Even in Audi's lineup where they don't really do like a SUV coupe, I don't understand the SUV coupes to begin with, but if I did, then I would go for the GLE or the GLC coupe as the sleek, stylish option, despite how impractical they are, over a Q4 every single day of the week. And if you think about the practicality of any other Audi SUV product, you have a Q5, you have a Q3, and you have an A4 if you want a sedan, that all serve a better purpose than the Audi Q4. Anybody who bought an Audi Q4 did it because the dealership offered them a better price on the Q4 than the car they actually came in to buy. Nobody originally went into the Audi dealership to buy an Audi Q4. Okay, the third car that should have never been made, and this one I almost regret putting on this list, but it fits for my criteria of it's a car that didn't need to exist given everything else that was in this manufacturer's lineup. And I am talking about the Ford Flex. Now, Dan, who is my ex-podcast co-host, if you watched this video, I know you had a Ford Flex, and when we talked about it, it was a car that is cool, it's styled nicely, it has a really powerful engine in it, it is practical because it's a boxy shape. But if you think about Ford's lineup, this makes no sense at all. They have the Explorer, and they had 3-row SUV Expeditions, or you could just get a Ranger or a F-150 and serve all the same purposes that a Ford Flex can serve. Unlike the other examples in this video, this car actually did make a bit of sense from a manufacturer's profitability standpoint because it looked cool, and so they could price it higher than an Explorer because it fit in the lineup for that reason, and that it was this sort of interestingly styled thing in a way that a Q4 is not accomplishing whatsoever. And so The Flex was a interesting car that I would see on the road and be like, oh, all right, that's kind of cool. But on the other hand, it didn't make any sense for them to decide to make it anyways. Like this taller wagon, when you have a Taurus wagon, you have an Escape, you have an Explorer, you have an Expedition, you have a Ranger. You have all these things that really can do the job that the Flex is accomplishing, but they wedged it in there on top of all the rest of them. The fourth car that should have never been made by the manufacturer is the Buick Verano. I'll let you Google that one for a second. It took me a moment to realize that this existed next to the Buick LaCrosse, next to the Chevy Cruze, next to the Cadillac CTS, next to the Chevy Malibu. Nobody needed another GM small to mid-sized sedan in a world where I don't even think Buick should exist in the first place. So if we want to talk about manufacturers that shouldn't exist or that shouldn't have made certain cars, every Buick for the last 25 years did not need to be made, because you had Pontiac, which also went under, you had Saturn, which also went under, you have GMC, which doesn't make sedans, but could, and then you have Cadillac, and you have Chevy. And so right now, all that Buick does is it takes things that could have a GMC badge on it, which is a much better brand, and it gives them a Buick badge instead. And you just don't need that. And so in the case of the Verano, this is a perfect example of a car that you didn't even know existed because of how few they sold. So Buick Verano essentially is a Malibu Cruze hybrid kind of a thing that sits below the Buick LaCrosse, which is a CTS, Cadillac CTS, or an Impala. I think I'm getting all these different chassis right here, but it's one of basically 6 sedans that were all made at the same time to accomplish the same purpose. And if you have, which is true at least here in California, Buick GMC Cadillac dealerships, just simplify your lives, kill off Buick, make it an ultra luxury brand and then a mid-luxury brand with GMC, and you're set. You don't need to have Buick whatsoever, and the Verano is the perfect poster child for this reason, and it should have never been made. And lastly, we're going back to Ford, and the reason that I'm picking on Ford is because I hold them in very high esteem. I have owned more Fords than any other car. I think that in general, they make their product planning decisions very correctly. I especially think when it comes to trucks and SUVs, they do an excellent job. But when it comes to their cars, I am skeptical of some of the decisions that they've made in the past. And so the one that I want to talk about today is the Ford 500. That is a car that should have never been made, and there's a reason it lasted as short a time period as it did. The Ford 500 was basically a big Taurus at a time when the Taurus was one of the best-selling cars in the world, and then you had every single Lincoln that you could ever want right above the Ford 500. Nobody bought it because it just fit in this criteria of essentially, this is the car that you buy for your grandma because she's owned Fords for her whole life and she wants one that's comfortable to get in and out of, and she has all the disposable income that she could want, and so you buy her a 500 because it's the nice one. In reality, there were probably a town car or two that you should have bought her instead. And so the 500 was a complete waste of space that didn't need to be there, and I regret that one of my favorite car brands decided to go out and put this car into the lineup, which had a weird name, a weird design, unreliable car, notoriously so, that didn't sell very well and lasted for only a short period of time and was a complete waste of energy for what is a very successful car company. And those are 5 cars that really did not need to be made by their manufacturers because there was no place for them in the lineup at the time that they were made. What do you guys think? Was I correct, accurate, insightful perhaps, or maybe you disagree completely? Leave a comment below. Don't forget to subscribe and stay driven.